What's up, everyone? Hello, hello. I am John Winter Murphy, or J Winter M, here with Where Did Drew Go? Drew's gone. I was here with Drew, Crypto Hydrate. I'm sure he'll be right back. And we're going to get started here in 2 or 3 minutes. We'll see. We only got a couple viewers, but I was going to go post the link in a couple other places and try and get some more people to join. We got some nice, funky CC0 background music going for y'all to listen to while we wait. And we'll get started here in just a sec. I just texted Drew to ask him where he went. Yeah, tonight we are here with Jeremy.eth and Inceptionally. Ari, Drew's back. Cool. We're only 1 minute out now. I got like my furnace going in the background. Hopefully it's not too loud. I'll turn the music down a little bit. Um, we got you ready, Drew? It is 9:59.
More ready than ever. This is going to be a banger tonight, boys.
Nice. All right, well let us I guess we'll wait a minute or two here. See if anybody else joins, but in the meanwhile, for posterity's sake, I guess I will keep shilling because I'm gonna say it at the end too. I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Magic Grants. We just opened our scholarships for 2024. We offer three $2,000 scholarships for any undergraduate interested in cryptocurrency. You can find the application link in the Reddit post sticky comment for this stream. It only takes 20 or 30 minutes to do the application. So if you are in undergrad or going to be an undergrad next year, or know somebody who's interested in cryptocurrency, tell them to check it out. It's a pretty easy application process for maybe $2,000 that goes towards tuition or whatever at school. And speaking of educational stuff, we had a subscription to Kahoot, which is about to expire, that was sponsored by Hydrate Labs and Drew's company, which we greatly appreciated. We used it for trivia for the year, do like educational crypto trivia, giving away moons. We'll see. We're kind of in the process of migrating moons to a new legal entity due to Reddit ending their involvement with the project. So we were like, the subscription just came up. Justin just texted me about that a little while ago. So without further ado, it's 10:01. So let's get started. It's the our cryptocurrency collectible podcast with myself, J Winter M, and Crypto Hydrate on Twitter. Drew here with me. And we have some guests from Descriptions and Ittybits that we're going to introduce in just a minute. But do you have any news you want to talk about, Drew? NFT general news of the world?
Well, I think, Ethereum is now proven as the global settlement layer. When the last bull market, there was a couple other L1s that were, speculatively getting steam, and now it's ETH L2s from Arbitrum to Optimism. I think that the biggest news is Base, and with how Base has been expanding with mints and activity through Farcaster. So there's this new social app called Farcaster, and you can do a lot of on-chain functions right in the UI. It's very crypto native and friendly. So Coinbase has been integrating in that, from mints to payments to all kinds of things. I actually had a call with the Coinbase commerce team with some errors I found. But Coinbase is blown up with their L2 with Base, and they're getting a lot of traction. There's a lot of people farming airdrops on there. There's been a lot of huge NFT sales, and Alien Punk sold, I think, just today for $16 million. Fidenzas are selling for millions of dollars.
Yeah, I was gonna say actually, we always start the show and it's like Bored Apes, like almost always like the news is Bored Apes, like or Yuga, which I guess a punk selling for 16 million is still kind of Yuga Labs news, I guess a little bit, but yeah, it's nice to see some other stuff. I mean, apes seem like they're coming back a bit as well, but yeah, there's been a lot of kind of old stuff getting hot again.
Apes are
I,
sliding. I mean, they're trying. Uh, Yuga, of course, released the 12-fold ordinal collection earlier in
Yeah, I
2023.
was gonna say like the only other thing I was gonna mention in like the news segment is just counterpoint to your ETH being the settlement layers. Now there's NFTs on Bitcoin, and if you're looking for data availability and long-term provenance availability, I mean, there's only one better option than ETH, and that's it, right?
Yeah, some people are
And
just
you
not going
see,
to play on
like
ETH.
if you look at the volume, like you'll like to talk about the volume in the markets usually, and the volume's not there for ETH NFTs lately. Honestly, like I mean, it's there's been a lot of days where Solana and Bitcoin are doing more volume in NFT markets than ETH layer one stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, Solana survived. They're now, they have with Tensor, that's a big NFT marketplace. Of course, Magic Eden has roared onto the scene. They just launched their Ethereum marketplace. They have their Diamond Redeem, where Solana traders, Ethereum traders are going to be able to collect their points token. We don't know what it does yet, or if it's going to have any value, but Magic Eden is tapping into OpenSea listings. I claimed like 1,000 diamonds today, and it said I could match that claim by porting listings from OpenSea to Magic Eden. So they're really digging in, trying to get OpenSea's market share. I can tell
that
you,
sounds
Magic
way too
Eden.
complicated for me. But yeah, I know
Yeah.
Magic Eden is doing a lot, and yeah, OpenSea's been kind of resting on their laurels. And it's crazy that OpenSea like integrated Solana and then they were like, oh, we changed our mind. And then Solana like blew past ETH, at least in a couple of days here and there, right? So
Well, you
without
saw a lot
further
of
ado,
teams sever ties with Solana,
and
famously
then go back. Yeah, I know it's
the D
drama, but
gods. That's a big deal.
yeah,
But Tensor is hot. That they have their own NFT Tensorians. But there's been a lot of volume on Bitcoin, and some people just are not going to use ETH or Solana. They're only going to use
right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, yeah, certainly.
And
Anyway,
I
without further
believe,
ado, let's bring in our guests. We have Jeremy.eth here and Inceptionally, who's showing his avatar trio there and his stream. But yeah, Jeremy, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Jeremy.eth here. You can find me on Twitter at Posvar, Posvar. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the crypto space since about 2017, fall, winter 2017. Initially just in crypto kind of currencies, primarily in the two big ones, of course. But it was about a couple of years later that I started playing around in what became NFTs. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I was playing around with ENS domains. You can see my first name ENS that I registered a while back, and then evolved from there into kind of experimenting with art on the blockchain as well through NFTs. So I've been around. I've created a few collections. Most notably, we'll talk about Ittybits a little bit later on. And yeah, it's just a pleasure to be here and kind of share more.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And Inceptionally, you want to introduce yourself a little?
Hello. I am mostly a NFT collector in the space. I'm in a bunch of communities, but I've been in crypto since 2013 for Bitcoin and 2015 for ETH. So been around a long time. I unfortunately faded NFTs for a long time, but I've been really enjoying the communities that I've joined in the last couple of years. And I think at this point, sometimes it's tough to know with the various wallets out there. I may be the largest Ittybit holder. So these Ittybits have really captured a lot of people's imagination. And I think Jeremy built a really cool, interesting, tech-forward project that.
Are those all Ittybits in your profile? Or in your
my CryptoPunk
thing?
is on the upper right, and then
Okay.
I have my matching Ittybit 312 with some
What's the rainbow background one?
Yeah, exactly. And that Jeremy can talk about why it has a rainbow background and how that's core to the project. And then the other one
cool.
is my likely future PFP when.
I see. So I see. The rainbow background one is the match to the CryptoPunk.
Correct.
Got you.
Correct.
Nice.
Correct. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we're here to talk about Ittybits, Itscriptions, and what you guys have been doing on Itscriptions in general. And I guess I think you seem like a fairly technical person, Jeremy. Maybe you could start out just by kind of talking about what are the similarities and differences between inscriptions on Bitcoin and inscriptions on Ethereum, which is what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll start with is there's differences for sure in terms of, and I'm not a Bitcoin inscriptions expert by any stretch. So what I know of as the difference here is when you're inscribing something on Bitcoin, you're actually writing something to and assigning it to a specific Satoshi, right? And then those Satoshis then mingle into your wallet with other Bitcoin. And if you're not using a special wallet to separate the two, there's obviously the risk that you might accidentally purchase something with Bitcoin and actually burn or sell that.
Or do other silly wallet operations that screw things up.
Things. Yeah. So there's definitely nuance there to managing inscriptions because you're inscribing on specific Satoshis. ETH-scriptions are not that. ETH-scriptions as a protocol has only existed for going on about a year now. I can't remember the exact date, but a couple of folks on the ETHscriptions.com team, Tom Lehman and Michael Hirsch, created this protocol. And at the time, I think they probably told the story last month or in January when they joined this podcast and talked about ETHscriptions specifically. But at the time, they were actually trying to prove why inscriptions on Ethereum wouldn't work and why it was unnecessary, et cetera. But in the process of doing so, I think they discovered actually there's a good use case for this. And so the difference with ETHscriptions from inscriptions is, of course, first, in the name itself, ETH, it's on Ethereum, it's not on Bitcoin. And second, what you're actually doing is instead of inscribing something to a Satoshi, you're writing something into the call data of a transaction. And what is call data? I think we should start there. Call data is, in all simplistic terms, it's the memo field of a transaction. Like you can put hexadecimal data into a transaction and make it part of the transaction in the memo, if you will. The easiest way that I've always had to think about this is you think about a Venmo transaction. You've just, Inception and I have just gone out for drinks. I owe him $10, but I didn't have my wallet. I go home that night. I send him $10 on Venmo. And in the memo field of Venmo, I add the beer emoji, right? With maybe the thinking, praying hands to say, thanks for the beer. I've just added a couple of emojis to the memo and sent him $10. That's pretty much what inscriptions are. Instead of adding emojis, you're adding, base 64 code representing the artwork in a data URI format that has been converted into hexadecimal string, and you're adding that hexadecimal string to the memo field. That sounds complex. There's a lot of kind of abstraction tools out there that allow you to just literally, click, upload image, and then pay the transaction fee, and it scribes it for you. But the manual approach is it's basically taking an image, for example, a PNG file or an SVG file or a PDF file or a WAV file, anything with a valid data URI code for it, converting it to its code and then translating that into a hexadecimal string, and then writing that as the memo to a transaction. And that could be a 0 ETH transaction to yourself. And so whenever I ETH something, personally, what I do is I set up the image and I ETH a 0 ETH transaction, sending it to my own address, and then I put that image data as hexadecimal string into the hex field.
And are ETHscriptions sequentially numbered the same way inscriptions are? I should know this because we talked to other folks before, but are they sequentially numbered in the same way?
They are numbered, yes. So as the indexers, as they're recognized and indexed by the protocol, they get numbers. And the fun thing about it is, if you're curious to what the very first ETHscription ever was, it's actually like 4 or 5 years ago. Let me see if I can pull up ETHscriptions.com.
Isn't it like a wedding photo or something?
No, there is one of those too, but the very first one is it is a picture of if I'm not mistaken, it's a cat, and it says something along the lines of the future will be enciphered or something like that. Here it is. I've got it. So let me share my screen here.
This was before ETHscriptions was even a gleam in Tom Lehman's eyes.
That's correct. So in the process of launching the protocol, they set the parameters for the protocol of what would ETHscription be, how would we know, how would the indexers know to look at all Ethereum transactions and find something that is a valid ETHscription. And it would need to look for certain syntax in that hex code, essentially in that call data field, and it would look for the data URI syntax of what makes a data URI. And in the process of doing that, they had to go back, after they defined kind of the parameters, they had to go back and run the indexer against all of time against Ethereum's transactions from the beginning, right? And in the process of doing so, they found what I'm sharing here, which is the very first time anyone had ever placed a data URI into and converted it to hexadecimal and put it into a transaction on Ethereum was 7 years ago. And you can kind of dig into this and kind of see it was May 29th.
So how many images or file data URIs were embedded before ETHscriptions was kind of conceptualized or whatever as an actual formal protocol?
This was the second one. So you can see here on the URL, I'm just changing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's somebody's seeming wedding photo. This was 6 years ago.
So you just have to keep going until you get to like 2023 or whatever.
This was again 6. Yep, someone did another one 6 years ago. And I think pretty quick here it becomes, there's 5 years ago. So you can see, like, it's pretty amazing. Yeah. Like, people were doing this.
Tron.
4 years ago. 4 years ago. Let's jump to 8. 3.
Yeah, but yeah, that's interesting.
So it's actually funny because ETHscriptions, if you want to talk provenance, ETHscriptions, technically the approach came before Bitcoin inscriptions by multiple years. And you can see here, I think once we get to like, ETHscription number 9 or so, 9 was 3 years ago, but then 10 was only 1 year ago. So this one probably was pretty, like this was pretty close to the time of the launch, I bet. And then number 11 is 8 months ago, and this would have been in one of the punks that was inscribed. So literally, there's about 9 or 10 inscriptions that preceded the official protocol. And
that's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting because like that the activity or the act of doing so was already something to do on the chain. And what the inscription protocol does is it codified the protocol around how to look for, how to index, and how to make those things recognized. And then it was launched, and folks went to town starting to inscribe things.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess with Bitcoin, it wasn't even really possible 6, 7 years ago, 7 years ago, to inscribe data in the segregated witness field that didn't exist until like 2018, right? So, but there was certainly people embedding images like that were base 60 or base whatever encoded into the Bitcoin blockchain, long ago. And but yeah, it's cool. It's really cool that there was only 10, right? It's cool that there was some, but it is really cool that there was like only 10. There's like weird random wedding thrown in there and stuff. Yeah, this is a neat origin story for sure. So inscriptions, I didn't realize they were so young. Only, I guess ordinals. Yeah, I guess ordinals are about maybe 18 months old now. So that makes maybe inscriptions are about a year.
The night that ordinals were being minted, I was hanging out with John, and he was like, "This is expensive to do, and you have to run a full node." So I was like, and
It's
then
not
when
really.
I saw inscriptions, people making those, I did a couple funks and like a Goro or something, and I was like, why do they do punks? Because they're all talking about, ooh, we made the punks. So, but I thought it was really interesting to put stuff on chain. And
Yeah.
one thing I forgot to mention in the intro is Coinbase did a big survey recently, and the words on chain resonate with a lot of consumers. They really like stuff that's on chain. So the fact that we're into this, we are.
We've gone from off the chain to on chain.
That's right. They like
uh,
it on the chain. So
I mean, that's
interesting.
what attracted me to inscriptions in the first place, was the idea that as a non-dev myself, that I could figure out how to, follow instructions and learn how to kind of convert images to data URIs and convert data URIs to hex and to use MetaMask to literally send myself a 0 ETH transaction, and in the process putting some pixel art on chain that would be immutable. Like, to me, that was just so cool.
Yeah, it's a really powerful idea, and I think using it to inscribe punks is like, kind of just the thing that people do with NFTs now, I guess, right? But the on-chain availability is really cool. Like, yeah, I have a company that does NFT stuff, and we've been doing some on-chain SVG stuff on ETH, just as like custom contract collections. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's a it's a really cool idea. It's attractive. I mean, I guess it's just, somehow like intuitively attractive to consumers, apparently, according to Coinbase. But I mean, with Bitcoin and Ethereum now, like it's getting questionable about how long it's really a feasible uh, strategy for most people to store data, right? I mean, like I
well,
was
I
gonna
can tell
buy an
you it's
Ittybit earlier, but it
expensive.
was $30 for the transaction fee, right? And anytime you're minting data on the chain, even if you're using a call data field or whatever, right? Like it still costs money to do that stuff. So
Yeah, dude.
it'll be it'll be interesting to see like 5 or 10 years from now if anybody's still really inscribing on Bitcoin or ETH, and if the stuff that's been inscribed is still worth anything, or if it's like worth something as like an artifact, or if it's actually still kind of used. I don't know, used, like what does used mean? But yeah, that's, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on
Probably
that
the
are.
expensive thing about engaging right now in Ethereum and even in inscriptions is when you're using a marketplace that uses smart contracts. And so there's something unique about inscriptions in that they don't use smart contracts. I need to explain that part, because if you're into Ethereum NFTs, you're probably into ERC 721s. Those have smart contracts behind them that basically bring those collections together and have all the metadata and have all the rules. And whenever you want to send somebody or sell somebody through a smart, like one of the NFTs through a smart contract, those transactions have to engage and write rules and engage with the smart contract itself in order to broker that deal. And that's expensive. Even if you just want to send, like, let's say you wanted to send Hydrate one of your ERC 721 traditional NFTs, you're still going to be paying a lot in gas because you still have to engage the smart contract to broker that send. Because the smart contract has to know the state and has to know the latest, if you will. Inscriptions are not like that. That's what's also interesting about inscriptions is you own the transaction, and I can send somebody an Ittybit for like 70 cents. When Ittybits first launched, I had minted a few, and I sent my wife her Ittybit to her wallet for like 70 cents because there's no smart contract to engage in. You're literally just sending a transaction, the hash of the Ittybit.
Yeah, I remember we talked about this quite a bit. But for whatever is worth, I guess Ordex must use not smart contracts.
Yes, Ordex uses smart contracts because what you're doing is the seller is escrowing.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, it's a crazy fee right now to try and buy something.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did talk about that quite a bit a couple months ago, and yeah, it is really a powerful idea to have things on chain and that they're like there forever, right? But it's questionable, if 10 times more people are using Ethereum and there's layer 2s who are using it, right? And how much longer can you keep storing data there, like for the vast majority of people?
I guess I'll posit this. I think there are really good scenarios. Not every scenario deserves on-chain, in my opinion. But I think there are really good scenarios. I actually tweeted about this just yesterday, where I think there's something about inscriptions that's unique, that is not the case with ordinals. It's not the case with ERC 721. And it's what's called the first come, first scribe principle. And what that means is if you have an exact file, a byte perfect file, only the first file is recognized by the protocol. So if somebody else tomorrow comes in and inscribes the same Ittybit, the same file that's already been inscribed, the protocol, like, it'll let you do it. Like, anybody can go into MetaMask and send themselves whatever data they want in the hex field, but the indexers won't respect it or recognize it as a valid inscription because they will look at the SHA-256 hash for that file and they'll recognize that that hash already exists as an inscription, and they will not index it, which is pretty special. And I'll tell you why that's special. I see you might be muted or something. I can't hear you, but I saw your voice moving. But I'll tell you why that's special. It's special because inscriptions becomes a really amazing platform for preserving digital authenticity and provenance when that matters. And there's instances where, in my opinion, where that does matter. For example, one of the things that I inscribed early in the process, I'm going to share my screen here again and share this. One of the things that I inscribed in the early days of inscriptions was Satoshi's original artwork. And let me show you what that is. So I'm going to share this and bring in this here. So what am I looking at? Like, first of all, I'm looking at a picture of an opossum. I'll get to that in a minute and why that's important and why that's historically significant. But I'll scroll down and I'll show you what is a byte perfect, provably authentic piece of artwork that Satoshi himself created. And that is the very first Bitcoin icon that was used in Bitcoin software, dating back to the first public announcement and release of the zipped Bitcoin software, right? So Bitcoin 0.1.0, distributed, at this point, 15 or so years ago, was, Satoshi was the main dev behind it. He was working by himself, and then later on with Hal Finney. There's all kinds of, even in the most recent email troves that just landed last week, there's all kinds of kind of history here that kind of justifies this. Moreover, in the early days when he distributed those zipped files of the first version of Bitcoin, he also gave hash values for them so that people could authenticate and make sure they're installing the right version. So he had MDA and SHA-256 hash values given for those as well, if I remember correctly. And so anyone can go and like find, and I've actually got it here. I brought it and unzipped it. You can go and find the very first source file for Bitcoin and navigate into the RC folder and find bitcoin.ico, right? That is the icon file. It contains 6 additional image files at different resolutions, 2 at 16 by 16, 2 at 32 by 32, and 2 at 48 by 48. And so there's 6 image files in there, but it's all contained in what's called an ICO file, which is basically the favicon, and it's what shows up in your tray when you're running Bitcoin software from day one. And why is that interesting? It's interesting because we know that Satoshi created it. He's talked about it. He's talked about the software. We know he designed this on his desktop or on his laptop. And then we know that it can only ever exist on chain once as an inscription, because a million years from now, when Bitcoin's worth $1 billion a coin and somebody wants to try to inscribe it, the indexers won't recognize it, which I think is pretty interesting. And with that, I'll just blow this one up too. The subsequent, when he updated in February of 2010, when he updated all of the designs for the BC logo to be the new glyph logo style, he did it publicly. He did it in the Bitcoin Talk forum. He showed everybody his icons in their PNG byte perfectness, and those are inscribed as well. And they'll never be able to be inscribed again, and they can only exist once as an inscription and once as an ownable asset. Take that to ordinals, take that to ERC 721. You can put these files on 1,000,000 times.
Well, yeah, I was going to say when I was muted, I know for a fact, right, you can do this and the indexers will pick them up if you inscribe the same thing more than once, because my only real experience with ordinals pretty much is minting some Bitcoin punks. And I did it pretty early, I guess. It wasn't like a huge rush. But I tried to mint maybe 10 or 11 or something, or 12. And I only got like 4 or 5 punks. I only got 4 or 5 Bitcoin punks, and then I got 6 or 7, whatever the next, like if you were the first one to mint, you got a punk. But if you're the second one to mint, you got a whatever they're called, right? So I got like 6 or 7 of them. So, I mean, there's a way to distinguish it on Bitcoin as well, right? Like, it's just, I guess, a little bit of a user interface thing, because like you said, anybody can put any data like on chain, right? And it's just the indexers come along and interpret the order in which things were put on chain. Yeah, and so I think it is really a powerful thing with both Ethereum and Bitcoin, and it is kind of nice from a user interface perspective for sure, that I guess by default they kind of don't recognize the same hash twice or same data URI twice or whatever.
And just to close where we started with this opossum, why the hell is there an opossum on my screen? This was actually part of what are now known as the Paleo PNGs. This was one of the first 3 or 4 PNGs to ever exist as a PNG file. So this was created. This is a photo by Glenn Randers person. He was the leading kind of member of writing the PNG specification, which was born out of necessity because there were a lot of patent disputes around the GIF file specification at the time, and so really like this cross global kind of collaborative group came together over the course of a couple of years and built the new PNG compression standard and whatnot. And this was one of the first 3 or 4 files that came out of that working group for testing and for validating the PNG specification, which it's pretty amazing because this is like digital history here. Is Glenn's backyard picture of an opossum, and it's again it's a pretty meaningful representation of like what now is kind of the standard image format for the World Wide Web.
One question I had was, using the ETHscriptions tech and then, getting out a 10K collection to the Ethereum market, what were some of the pros and cons of using it versus a token? Like I know obviously, non-fungible token with a smart contract is more expensive to mint and transact. But how was it received, and what was some of the pushback that you got?
Yeah, I mean, creating a collection on e-scriptions, it's definitely new space. If you're typically used to doing things with smart contracts where you have all the metadata and you can, you know, a lot of times the smart contracts will reference IPFS where you can have large file sizes as your images and all that kind of stuff. When you're using e-scriptions, you're basically the collection comes on chain one piece at a time, right? Because if you think about it, what you're doing is you're allowing minters to actually pay the gas and actually put the inscription on chain through their own transaction. And so in a 10K collection like Ittybits, there are 10,000, exactly 10,000 unique Ethereum transactions. Each one of them represents one Ittybit because each one of them have loaded the Ittybits artwork into the payload to write those. And so the way we did that was through a smart contract, using kind of traditional smart contract approach, where a minter would pay into a smart contract, and then that smart contract would sequence all of the mints from a minting wallet. So a minting wallet actually minted all 10,000. On minting it, though, instead of sending it to itself like you would typically do yourself, it would send it to the order of the minter, right? So that, you know, if you were the third minter, then the third transaction that was executed by the minting wallet would be sent to you. And so that was a little bit just getting people to understand, okay, I'm engaging with
that sounds a little tricky.
Yeah, but for a user, it was just, it was a little bit different because for a user, all they had to know was, all right, I'm paying ETH on a minting contract, and then I gotta wait. It's not immediate. I gotta wait for that minting contract to then sequence all the mints and then start minting them one at a time and wait for mine to be sent to me. So it's kind of, there was a little bit of a delayed reveal experience for it because you had to kind of trust that once you paid your ETH into the minting wallet, you would wait for it to sequentially then ascribe to each of the minters.
And then you also sacrifice a little bit of decentralization with using Ordex, which when you buy and sell items, you have to escrow them. You have to send them to the marketplace contract. And then when you buy something, you can choose to automatically un-escrow it, or you can keep it escrowed in case you're trying to trade. But that, you know, that can sometimes present challenges with the provenance because it's hard to track where each one has sat. But I think can you do it now? Can you look at each individual Itty and see which wallet it's gone from? Like
I believe you can.
Yeah, you can on Ordex.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, if somebody moved it around like between escrow and not escrow, then it takes a while to load all that data.
Okay.
I mean, the data is on chain. The question is, you know, are there going to be tools to provide it? Which is one of the things that's fascinating about Ittybits and inscriptions is a lot of this is being invented while the collection is being collected. So, you know, just some of the stuff that Jeremy said, those early days, the tools were much less developed than they are now, and it was really fascinating to see everyone's reaction to the slow reveal. Some people were really antsy, other people were excited about it. But yeah, the Discord was blowing up that night with questions and what's going on. And then, of course, when the stuff did get revealed, it was like, you know, everyone got all excited.
When I saw it, I immediately knew it was cool. You know, the concept of taking a derivative and making fresh content at the same time. And you know, it was really fun to see the different traits. And I think some of the traits pop more in this format than the regular punk traits. I really like the clown nose with shades, for example. So, you know, one thing about punks, which is interesting, is a lot of people are priced out of punks, but through these derivatives, they can fall in love with punks and the different traits. And, you know, the advantage of using this tech is it's a lot cheaper. You're using mainnet, but the gas is a lot cheaper to transact, to mint. So for creators, this tech, you know, it makes it very accessible, but it is still new. And for those that tuned in to the prior show we had with Facet, Tom Lehman, and others, He's the founder of the ETHscriptions as a protocol, and so this is built under that thing that he had pioneered from last summer. And Jeremy, I really liked what you said about people using this for historical preservation. I've been personally doing photographs, but from journals to all kinds of memories that people want to preserve, you can do this relatively cheaply, and whatever you put, whether it's an image, whether it's text, it's on chain forever. So there's a compelling use case for this for longevity. And we know that Magic Eden recently listed ETHscriptions, the ones that are under Emblem Vault. So before these marketplaces existed, Ordex, ETHscriptions Market, etc., you had to actually put these in a fresh wallet, and you would trade the wallet token through Emblem Vault. And then they came out with tech, that made it easier, and you didn't have to do that. But Magic Eden, by the way, was very early on ordinals as far as creating a marketplace for it. So the fact that they have listed Emblem Vault is a big deal, because if you have the same marketplace where there's ordinals also having ETHscriptions, you have a chance there for some real cross-pollination.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful, because we've talked about Ittybits, but we haven't really even introduced Ittybits yet. So maybe it would be helpful if we explain, well, what the hell are Ittybits, and why are we even talking about Ittybits relative to Punk?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask before you dive in, maybe it seems like the minting process is maybe a little more complex, and then on the exchange side, you don't really get the benefits of the low cost of transfer, because you have to get it interact with their smart contracts anyway. So has there been any examples of people trying to take advantage of this low transfer cost and using it to mint a bunch of stuff and airdrop it to people or anything?
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, certainly. I've minted things and then realized I didn't want them in my wallet anymore because they were just tests or something like that. I've sent a 200 ETHscriptions to the trash, the burn account, all for less than $10 in total after sending 200 assets in kind of a bulk transaction. Yeah, there's definitely use cases that you could turn around and use for airdrops that you could use to easily distribute things. So yeah, it's definitely kind of there's definitely use cases there where if you don't need a smart contract, there's efficiencies all around. So moving on, I guess what are Ittybits, and why do you have Inceptionally and myself, both Punk owners, by the way, thinking about them and talking about them? So maybe some context there on what they are and how they came about. So I've had Punk 7741 since 2021. 2021. And I fell in love with punks as soon as I started doing deeper research on NFTs and trying to understand kind of the significance of what ownership on chain actually would look like in a sense of owning art, or in a sense of owning digital assets. So I fell in love with punks early in my journey, and through that kind of have experimented, right? And I've been doing things, with punks and with art, I'll do some examples here. I built this what I call the Rand Punk generator, which literally it's an Excel widget that allows you to go in and specify traits that are constraints, and then allow randomization of all of the other punks into the same asset. So you can create some really crazy looking things. Like here I've said, give me a random pixel from any punk, but make sure that punk must have the 3D glasses and a cigarette. But otherwise, each of the 576 pixels in a punk can be from any punk out of the 10K. So you do just crazy things like that. I did a lot of kind of write-ups a couple of years ago where I was kind of assessing assessing derivatives through what I called the punk quadrants, which was a classification system that looked at, adherence to CryptoPunk trait logic, which I called coherence, versus adherence to aesthetic, which I called cohesion. And so I would do a lot of kind of just understanding of where is a CryptoPunk and where do all of these 24 by 24 pixel derivatives fall. And so like I'm super like passionate and deep about this space and have been for 2 or 3 years, 4 years, I guess, at this point. And it was early 2023 when this came across my feed. This is from an artist named Jay Peter, and he had posited like, what if punks were only 8 by 8 pixels? And it just caught my eye, and I was like, holy crap! Like you can actually see, I can't tell you the punk numbers per se in all cases, but I can tell I can tell that's the alien with the cap. I can tell that's the cowboy with a handlebar mustache.
Right.
You can see these, and you can, there's Kozo's zombie with the mouth, the face mask. So you can see these, and you can quickly like identify them. I thought that was hilarious, and so I was like, could I recreate that for my Punk 7741? So I went in, and you can see here on all the layers, I started building to see, could I make all 10K? And in the process of doing that, I realized, no, you can't make all 10K. It's too few pixels. You can't get the resolution in order to differentiate all 10K with only 64 pixels. And so I tried again at 10 by 10, and then I tried again at 12 by 12. And it was at 12 by 12, and it was at 12 by 12 where I realized like, oh, that's how you get all 10K. That's how you can differentiate male from female. In the original punks, they're differentiated by archetype size, the red one being the female and the blue one being the male. In Ittybits, they're differentiated by simply 3 pixel mouth versus 1 pixel mouth. And so we had to do that because there's not enough space to have a different archetype size in only 12 by 12. And so it was this big exercise of like, can we get all 10K? How do we treat things like the smile and the frown? Well, the smile, for example, would require another pixel way up here on the cheek, which just wouldn't look right. It would conflict with a lot of other traits. It would conflict with the mole. And so the smile became this like toothy grin. And so there were just decisions all along on like, how do you get this to work? How do you get this to work? And how do you create all 10K? Which you can start to see in this map here, where I'll zoom out, and you can see, the accomplishment of all 10K in a 100 by 100 grid, in a space where, any one of those will drill into its Ittybit plus the corresponding CryptoPunk from which it's derived. And so it just turned into this massive exercise of trying to accomplish the whole 10K, and then doing it in a way that respected the traits, that understood kind of the importance of differentiating from Ittybit to Ittybit, just like from punk to punk, and then doing it in a way that also kind of created a new way of thinking about it. And this was all in parallel to thinking about what are inscriptions. Inscriptions is a new way of thinking about Ethereum. It's a new way of putting art on Ethereum. And so along the way, like these paths of inscriptions and Ittybits started to collide at the end of last year, when I decided to kind of launch the whole collection as an inscription collection.
Oh, cool.
Hey, Jeremy, I want to jump in and really talk about something that we don't talk about as much as we should. I think the tech that you put together to create all this was remarkable, but I don't think people discuss enough or give you enough credit for the artistry of how well these came out. I mean, obviously there's some traits that look a little bit funky, but for the most part, they are really punky. They actually, like, you can see the inspiration of the punks, and yet they still have their own distinct flavor, and they look good even at this very reduced size. The constraints that you had to sort of basically, shrink the canvas by 75%, put you in mind, but you really came out with flying colors in terms of how cool these look. A lot of us in the Discord talk about how we like many of these more than the actual punks. Sometimes that's familiarity. We've seen it so much that we love it, but I think it's true for a lot of them. I think it's amazing. So kudos to you for that.
Yeah, there's something about, you can kind of see that animated here at the bottom here. There's something about minimalism here, and the requirement to zoom in a little bit in order to make it work in 12 by 12 that, in my view, makes them more personable. It's kind of like if you're a photographer out there, you probably know of like the 85mm portrait lens, and it's like this very special, expensive lens. And there's something about that lens, especially on like vintage Canon cameras, that you just feel closer to the subject. And there's like this more intimate connection with the subject, or with the PFP in this case, through that zoom. And you can see it here in Inceptionally's example in his avatar here. You know, a typical CryptoPunk is going to have a lot of white space. Let's just grab let's grab this one, for example, and go look. You know, a typical CryptoPunk has a ton of white space above the top of the head, and you know, that you see the blue background in. And like, really with Ittybits, they're all zoomed in. They all take up, you know, call it 60-70% of the frame of the PFP. You know, versus when you look at, you know, punks, they can be, you know, more like 40-50% of the frame. So there's something about that proximity to the subject that I feel like makes them, like, connects the viewer more to them.
Can you tell us about the actual process? I know there's a certain amount of attempts that has to be made to match up something with the hash. Can you
Yes.
talk about the hash and then also the backgrounds?
Yes, 100%. So, so as we got into December and I decided to use Ethscriptions to launch the project, I had something I had to figure out, which was I wanted to launch the website. You know, if you've been to ittybits.xyz, I hope you'll find the website super engaging. There's all kinds of
website. I was going to say the website is fantastic. It's really slick.
So I'm not a dev. I've never really built a real website before, but I built this entire website over the course of many months using ChatGPT.
I would say it looks like a real website to me, so I think it counts.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real website. Like, you can go and play with it. You can do some amazing things. Like, if you go into the Explore tab, for example, you can look at all 10,000 Ittybits in various formats. You can view them as grids. You can filter. You can pivot. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Is that what library did you use for the graphing in JavaScript there?
It is using an open source Microsoft project called Sandance.
Okay, cool. I'm not familiar with them, but yeah, it's super fancy. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, you can, and the great thing about it is, if you're a punk aficionado, you can come here and use all the same insights and interrogation on this data, because it's all the same data. So you can come in here and you can see, you know, this it happens to be 6676. You see all of its trait data, and you can click into it, of course, and then jump back into that specific Ittybits card and learn more about him here. And to the point of, like, I wanted to show this before we minted. Like, I wanted everybody to see this, but the challenge with that is sharing this out in advance would invite anyone to come and right-click save and Etscribe the entire collection before it ever reached mint. And I needed to avoid that, because we already talked about byte perfect and provenance of first come, first scribe. And so what I did was I actually launched the website with the entire collection with decoy assets as the images. So if you can kind of grab this and you can, like, you can see the little image here that represents that image. I actually put like bad pixels in the background, and so that the record, or the actual, if you right click save this, you'd be saving a decoy asset and not the official asset that represents the byte perfect punk connected asset. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But I did that, and of course, as expected, we did have right-click savers trying to go and, like,
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, did people try and do it?
They did, and but they couldn't, and I'll tell you why. And it's because every Ittybit in the background, what looks like the blue pixels, and you can see that because when I drag it over here, you can see it looks like it has transparent pixels, right? It doesn't have transparent pixels. Every pixel in the background has a less than 1% opacity value. So and there's random colors in every pixel space. And the reason why, and you can turn those on. So they're called hash pixels. If you turn on the hash pixels, you can see this Ittybit 6676 has random colors. The bottom right pixel is always the signature pixel for its own number. So its hash value or its hex code is 006676. And then all of the other pixels around are random through proof of work. And what does that mean? This is actually probably the most interesting thing about the technique here, is that every Ittybit had to be created upwards of, on average, it was every Ittybit had to be created 64,000 times until it was able to create a hash matrix or a hash pixel background, of which when you SHA-256 file hash the image, the last 4 digits, 6676 of the file hash would match the Ittybits number and would match the crypto.
Gotcha.
And so there's real proof of work behind every Ittybit. And you can see that below here. It's kind of small, so maybe I'll try to zoom in a little bit. This Ittybit, this was a great one. Only 6966 Ittybits were mined, created to generate the hash that matched it. You can go, we'll go back and we'll kind of go grab just, let's grab this zombie here.
This is cool. Jeremy, what I love about this is it really raised the bar for projects. And it's funny, there's a meme in crypto Twitter right now called study this or study that. And I say study Jeremy.eth as far as like, this mint was so well executed and you have so many different like really cool features here. It was so thoughtfully done. A lot of people are launching stuff and they get 10,000 JPEGs, but this was so thoughtfully done. I think you have that edge where someone with some technical ability can appreciate the nuance and the different things that you've done here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very cool.
I mean,
I like the proof of work signature, so to speak.
Yeah, the stat behind this, 648 million Ittybits. That's how many Ittybits were created to curate the final 10K. The fastest Ittybit found, I think, was 6 generations, and in one of those Ittybits got really lucky. In 6 generations, it found its hash match. The most expensive proof of work was 506,000 Ittybits. Basically killed in the process of eventually creating one with the random hash pixels that would allow it to match the SHA-256 hash of the punk from which it belongs.
And that creates another element, kind of hidden element of rarity, where you have this and then you have the colors themselves. So is there a way to do the background that it has just the signature pixel color?
Yeah, so you can hover over the PNG download and you can download the authentic. This is only the 12 by 12 pixels. This is like the authentic image that is actually on chain. Then you can download the large version with a fully transparent background, with the punk blue background, with the single pixel signature pixel background, and then as it's seen here with the pixel hash background.
And I can say, these features make using the PFPs across different platforms more accessible. There is a trend within some of the punks derivatives communities this year and last year with having the same image but a different color background. So ETH Punk had one, that the V3 Funks have one. There's a lot of different backgrounds, and it kind of represents trends. And so I've noticed that making this type of stuff accessible to people really broadens the amount of things they can do with their PFP. So it makes it really fun. Now, I went through the website earlier and I noticed there's merch, and then I noticed you're wearing, is that all 10,000 Ittybits on one sweatshirt?
It is, yeah. So
Nice.
I'll open up the merch page, but yeah, you can see that here. Let's see if my camera will pick it up. Pretty good. I'm a little bit blurry from the camera, but yeah, I mean, you can see here on the page that I'm showing, we've got high quality G-Clay printed prints that are printed at 13 by 13 high quality kind of poster paper. And then we also have, the hoodie that I'm wearing is this, zip up in blue. You've got dark gray. You've got the signature pixel version. You've got pink. You've got light gray, and then zip and non-zip. And so the way we're doing merch now is, and I mean, look at these prices. They're very approachable, right? Like, we're not making any profit off of these. It's all break even for us to allow Ittybit owners to connect more with the collection and connect more with their Ittybits. this is a rotating supply of assets.
Are you guys doing the gate your merch to NFT holders only thing?
Yeah. So right now, you can get the 10K poster, this one here. Anyone can pick up this, but if you want your special, so like each of these are actually quite cool. Like this is the whole 10K, but with your Ittybit, the whole 10K, but with your Ittybit behind it all, right? And so these, you have to authenticate your wallet and prove that you own the Ittybit. And
Cool.
all of the hoodies
did you guys buy a Giclée printer, or you contracted out?
We have the supplier at OX Shop that we're working with,
Okay.
does all the printing for us. They also not just print it, but it's pretty cool. We also have a authentication process for it. So I'm going to go back to authenticity page, which is here. And so when you get a poster, you're not just getting the poster. Behind the poster, on the back side of the poster, there's an NFC chip, and every physical is also inscribed. There's an authenticity ID associated with that physical, ascribed as well to Ethereum, to prove that that physical exists. And you can see that here. Like if I click into this one, authenticity ID 103124, all of the data that you see on screen here is actually being pulled from the inscription itself, from the call data of Ethereum. It's not, there's no database behind this page. It's all being pulled out of the SVG's metadata to display the fact that, Ittybit 0168 had printed a poster, and the poster is the portrait on Punk Blue, and it was the 22nd physical asset printed for the Ittybits collection. And so that's pretty cool, because like they all come with proven provenance of being from the collection.
Yeah, that is really cool. I think I mentioned an NFT company, and we released a bunch of stuff under Art 101 is like kind of the label. And we're thinking about maybe buying a Giclée printer and offering maybe like signed prints to, if you own the NFT, then you can order a signed print, or even maybe doing something stupid like, if you want a signed print, you have to like burn your NFT and then we'll send you a signed print or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's cool what you can do now with, and the website is fantastic. Like it's very professional. So great. It looks super nice. Like
So
overall.
certificate of authenticity, that's really neat. I mean, that has a lot of, different uses. So I'm pumped. This looks great. I wanted to ask you, so this came out, and there was a famous newsletter from Cosimo Medici that had stated Ittybits are like the mutants for punk. So like you have Bored Ape and then the mutant. He's saying punks and then Ittybits. How was that received from the community, and how much of the punks community are into these?
I think that's a great question for maybe conceptually to kind of speak to.
Well, interestingly, that was about a week after launch, like right, basically to the minute that he released that. And during that first week, it was pretty chaotic. There was people sniping all over the place and trying to get the rare traits. Obviously, punks have been around for 7-8 years, so people understand what the rarities look like if they have some knowledge of punks. And clearly, Cosmo knew, so he was clearly eyeing a bunch of the ones that were interesting. And a bunch of other prominent members as well snagged a bunch of great stuff. He and I I think we purchased the first 4 aliens that were purchased. In the first 3, we were within a minute and a half of each other. It was really insane. I didn't actually know it was him until about 5 days later when I tried to dig through his wallets, because they don't show up in your OpenSea wallet. They're not traditional NFTs. That will probably change eventually as technology gets more advanced. But once he posted that, I actually posted a thread about that sort of snipe war over the aliens 8 minutes before he released his newsletter. And once the newsletter hit, it was just an insane frenzy of people buying and people selling and people discussing it online. And the punks, I think, had already been well aware. Like there were punks that purchased their their Ittybits early on. I know I did in the first 36 hours. And a lot of inbound, I think folks talk to Jeremy about it. He's been to events where he's discussed it with them. It's not a particularly huge topic on the Punks Discord, but I think individually, whenever people come across somebody who has an Ittybit, I've only gotten really positive feedback. I've heard a little bit of concern that people are going to have to pay up to get their Ittybit, but if you go look right now, the floor price is incredibly reasonable. Like, you could probably make a pretty good deal if you could find the person that owned your Ittybit. And I'm sure there'll be community initiatives that help with that, because I think we love the Punks. I mean, the people that own Ittybits are generally some of the biggest fans of Punks. And my view is that these derivatives, like Ittybits and like some of the other interesting ones that have come out, only strengthen the Punk ecosystem. So for me, like, I just got excited that this was one of the cooler looking derivatives I've ever seen, not just of Punks, because of the creativity that Jeremy put into it, and how I think the way I described it is it took the minimalist elements of CryptoPunks and took them to the extreme. Like, you really can't do anything more minimalist than this. Put it on chain, you put it with new technology, it loads up a bunch of cyberpunk cool tech into a really cool looking PFP project, which of course happens to be associated with the granddaddy of them all. So that for me has always been the big attraction to Ittybits. Like, most of my time in NFT land has been on art, and I view this just as much as art as any of the other artworks that I've collected. So I think I went a bit further afield in your question, but
no, I love it.
Yeah.
So
I think that was good
traits,
perspective. Yeah, to kind of wrap things up, start to
Okay.
wrap things up. At least it's after 11 here, and I got to teach all day tomorrow.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, they're definitely not a straight clone, and yeah, like you guys were talking about, that they're like can't be minimalized any further, and they're super cool.
I
And
love
the
the
website, as
clowners.
I'll say for the third time, the website is super fresh, man. I love the website.
I wanted to
mean,
go
the
around and
Punk's
ask
website.
ask
Sorry, go
everybody
ahead, Gary.
what's your favorite trait from the Ittybit side. Like, for me, I like the clown nose and the shades. I think that looks really good on these. Are there any traits that you guys have seen that you like more as Ittybits than regular?
I'll
The
go first.
zombie eye.
I love the smile. I love the toothy grin over the smirk pixel. To me, I mean, look at what I'm showing on screen now. Like, that toothy grin, it just pops. It's for me, it's probably the smile. My answer probably changes every time someone asks me that, but I just love the grin.
Love it. And so to trade these currently, it's ordex.io. So ordex.io, and they're featured right on that front page.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, if you go in, you can launch there from any of the Ittybit pages. You can see the whole collection here. We're nearing at $2 million in secondary in the first couple of months. The floor is
You guys
quite
don't do
reasonable.
any creator royalties or anything, I'm assuming.
There is Ordex recognizes a 5% creator royalty on it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Love it.
But yeah, it's Ordex is really the main show right now for NFTs as subscriptions. They've built all of their smart contracts to kind of handle subscriptions and focus on subscriptions. So
Nice. Did you have anything you wanted to close with inceptionally?
Well, I've got to give some of my favorite traits. I would say for me, the 3D glasses they just rock in this format. And obviously I've got that zombie with the 3D glasses, so I'm pumped about that. I would say, interestingly, there's a few traits that I like more in Ittybits, and a good example is the choker. I find the choker on the CryptoPunks to be kind of like almost too subtle, whereas in Ittybits it actually doesn't necessarily look like a necklace necessarily, but it has like a nice almost like a turtleneck vibe, so it gives an air of like of a regalness to the folks that have it. It's obviously it's always nice to have a rare trait because it sort of makes it feel more special.
Steve Jobs punk.
Yeah, you could very well have a Steve Jobs punk here.
Totally.
Cool.
Love it.
Did
Well,
you have
thank
anything you wanted to close with, Jeremy?
I mean, what I want to close with is just kind of recognition for the community that's here already. So we've got a Discord. You can find us at Ittybits_ETH on Twitter. Obviously ittybits.xyz. You can get access to all of our links in the footer there, whether it's the socials or any of the other resources, the merch, all that kind of stuff. So check us out there. But kudos to the community, because the community has really come together. You can see that happening in real time on Twitter, and you can see it happening in real time in Discord. They've come up with amazing kind of ways to talk about this collection and to illustrate this collection. Early on, we had Inception, I think, wasn't it you that came up with community is the utility with the ITTY?
I came up with the ITTY at the end of community, and then I think it may have been you that coined community is the utility, which honestly I think it should be a buzzword for every PFP project or even art project. Like, it is an important element of Web3.
Yeah, I mean, the ITTY branding, kudos to Inceptional here, because he and I were chatting, I think, at one point, or maybe he tweeted it or something, and I just caught on to it. I was like, holy shit, like, you can use this for so many things: community, utility, identity, individuality. All these things end in ITY, and for us, they end in ITTY. So I thought that was a really awesome rallying cry for us, as well as like the pinch emoji. People started using the pinch emoji early on Twitter,
and then the Apple VR headset came out.
And then the Apple VR. And so it's been really cool to see creators and ideas come from the community and take hold within the community, and really it's been largely community led at this point. So kudos to everybody out there that has an 80-bit or that's had one in the past and that's kind of contributed to that ethos that is, I think, still growing.
Cool. Well,
thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you both. Yeah, we appreciate you guys coming on and taking the time. And I will just end by saying, I think I promised somebody that I would make an announcement about Moonplace, and I will just say that we're waiting to now kind of migrate over to ARB1, and maybe we'll do Moonplace version 2 on ARB1 in 2 to 7 months or something. We'll see. And I just want to announce again, magicgrants.org has scholarships open now for next year, and they're open until July, so you have plenty of time if you're an undergraduate student or you're going to be next year, or someone who is and is interested in cryptocurrency. Please send them our way to magicgrants.org, and hopefully we'll be back here in April to talk more NFT stuff with Drew and some other fine guests such as yourself. So thank you again, Jeremy and Inceptionally, and have a good night, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Appreciate it.